Hey guys, Jeremy here with Simple Life. What I'd like to do today is set up my metal lathe with a 4-jaw chuck so that I can turn blocks for Japanese like wah style handles. The way I do it, I like to bore a hole through the middle and I use the Dowel Method. I'll put a link in the description to a video that shows that if you're not familiar with that. But what I would do in the past is I would take my blocks of wood. Typically what I'd do before is I'd set it up in my drill press, drill through it. Now the problem that I had, not really a problem, but it takes a long time to make sure that I want this thing going straight down the middle of it. If you're not super careful and really fussy with the setup, sometimes you can get holes that are a little bit cockeyed, and then when you go to put the dowel in with the tang of the blade in, you're not perfectly true to the block. Generally, it's not that big of a deal because there's a lot of material on these that I can salvage it. But what I would like to do is take off this 3-jaw chuck and put on a 4-jaw chuck. Now, if you're not familiar with the difference, this 3-jaw chuck is a good general purpose chuck, and it works a lot like a Jacobs chuck on a drill press. When I turn this, any one of these 3 holes, all 3 of these jaws will go in and out together. This lathe did come with a 4-jaw chuck right there. I'm hoping it fits. And the way that the 4-jaw chucks work is that each one of those jaws work independently. So you could clamp something that's square, or if you had something round that you needed an off-centered hole in, you can do that. Typically they're a lot of work for general turning. The 3-jaw chuck is definitely a better option, just for turning round stock and general use. It's a lot quicker. This is typically designed for custom, like difficult parts. What I think I can do is get this set up in a way that it should be fairly easy. If I mark the center of the block, I can adjust it. I'll put my live center here to find that we're in the middle. Then we'll take this out, put in the drill chuck, and I can drill these. And the nice thing with that is that they will be going right perfectly in line with the block. That's the theory. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to work, but let's give it a try. The one thing I don't have is I don't have the proper spanner for this. And so I'm going to have to do is take like a brass drift or aluminum drift and see if I can knock this off. These suckers are heavy, so we're going to be careful. All right, first things first, let's have a look at this 4-jaw chuck. Oh my goodness, it's not light. Oh, I like this old equipment. You can see these threads are not in the most amazing condition, but I think it's gonna work. So if we look at this, this is a normal thread. So this would thread on this way. Well, so if this threads on like this, so I think, actually, you know what we need to do? We need to move our carriage and our tailstock out of the way. There's no sense fighting with all this stuff if we don't have to. Also, general rule of safety, this is a bad idea on a lathe. A lot of guys will just move it out of the way and they'll be working here. I've seen guys shiv themselves nastily. So we'll just pop this out, put it right there. We're not gonna get ourselves. Okay, let's see what happens. It's moving. Ah, yes. Okay, good. Now, let me bring you over this way so you can see what's going on. So that I can get in here. Oh boy. Why is that not coming on? That's interesting. There we go. Now, I don't know for sure that these are the same thread. I'm assuming that this is from the same machine. You'll notice we've got a taper here. There's also a key right there, so we'll have to keep that in mind. I do believe these are the same. You see on this side here, right there, we've got a taper as well. Or a keyway and a taper. Oh, look at this. Just like a whistling Dixie. I don't know if you can see that, but right there it says off. There's a little direction, so hit it that way to get it off. Fancy pants. I don't know how crazy I have to go with it. I think that should be good. You'd hate this to come flying off when I'm using it, but... Oh no. I see a problem. And it might bring this whole dream to an end. This screw's broken. What a shame. I wonder how the other ones are. That one's okay. Yeah, they're all good except for that one. Bummer. Now, whenever I see something that's broken, it always begs the question, how broken is it? I'm not sure if I have the wrench for that. Might be able to just use a regular big Allen wrench if I have it. Although I don't know if I have anything that large. It's like the dream dies even before it has a chance to begin. Oh, shoot. None of that's gonna help me right now. What to do, what to do. Bummer! Yeah, I don't think that's very likely. It's too big. These are the moves of desperation that we make in our shop. Oh, wait a minute. You know, this is flared out a bit at the end. But is there a chance? Is there a chance? So that's 1/2 inch. What do you guys think? I'm gonna put money on this one? Not that I encourage gambling, but... Oh, this might be a real podunk way to get things done. But if I clean up these burrs, I might be able to make this work. The way I see it, I don't have many other options right now, so we're gonna give it a try. Well, let's just clean up these little edges here, see what happens. Moment of truth. Oh, it's pretty tight. It does work. The old Nipex. Oh, what has happening? Well, it's not the greatest, but it's turning. And actually, as it seats further down, it kind of stays together. Oh man, this is a podunk way to do it, that's for sure. You know what? That might be good enough for me to try this. Anyways, good representation of how a 4-jaw chuck works. You notice I'm tightening on this jaw. That's the only one that moves. And it allows you to, like I said, you can clamp up odd shaped things, square things, etc., etc. So I'm just gonna bring that one about like that. Oh man, that's just... So if this does work, it might definitely be worth me looking into possibly seeing if I could repair that. I was really hoping this was gonna be like the raddest YouTube video that I had this idea and all of a sudden it just works. But hey, life isn't always that easy. Okay, so that's tight that way. Ugh. Yeah, you know what? It's actually, when I look at this, the threads itself are actually okay. It's just this top portion is a little bit cattywampus. Okay, and then what we can do, we'll bring our tailstock in and see how far out we were. Put our center on here and just see roughly. Oh my, we got that sucker really nicely centered. We are hitting pretty much right in the middle. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's pretty darn close. So what I'll do now, I will put a drill bit in here. We'll just try drilling this out and see how it works. First we'll use our centering bit. It's gonna get a bit noisy because I have to run the phase converter, but we'll have to live with it. Hopefully that noise isn't too obnoxious. Now, one thing I want to do real quick before we get cutting, I just want to make sure this thing ain't going to come flying off of here. Seems to be okay. Whoops. All right. That's looking okay. Let's swap out for a drill bit. Scoot this up right where we need it to be. Tighten down the tailstock. Bring you guys in nice and close. Fire this bad boy up. And we'll start cutting. Well, that's a terrible sound. I do apologize for the real world sounds. Ouch, it's a little warm. Now, I wasn't perfectly centered there, I can tell from here. However, as long as it should be perfectly in line. That shouldn't matter for a little bit one side or the other, because we can kind of compensate. I was being a little bit lazy when I set this up, I think is kind of basically what it boils down to. Let me turn this phase converter off. Okay. Let's see what we end up with. Loosen off the tailstock. Get it out of the way. Take our chisel. You love redneck engineering, huh? Just loosen off 2 of these. There we go. It's not perfect, but it's not terrible. I think there's enough hope here that this might definitely be something worth pursuing further. Oh, look at that dust bunny. Psh. I'm kind of just looking along at this. This dowel's a little crooked, but that is exactly what I was hoping for. I don't know if you'll be able to see from your end, but you can kind of tell it is nicely lined up there. Nicely lined up right there. So in theory, we've got a really nice straight hole in here that is perpendicular to the outside of this block. And that is exactly what I was hoping for. Obviously, a little bit more time spent in the setup. With the dowel in there, it's actually a little bit more obvious how off kilter we were. But again, that was just me being hasty. You know, I really truly do think that this is going to be a phenomenal solution to doing these blocks. The idea being that I can set up, you know, get my blocks all the same, a whole bunch of blocks, the exact same dimension. And if you accurately set it up one time, you'd mark out the 2 jaws that you're adjusting, leave the other 2 fixed. So actually the broken one, I'd kind of leave that in position once it was finely tuned. And then I could just loosen off 2 of them, slide a new block in there, bore it out, put hearing protection in because that's obnoxious. And I could go through batches of these and have these ready, oh boy, for knife handles. I think the only way to get it out is to put this in the vise. I like that. I like that a lot. And if at this point you don't know exactly like why on earth are you doing this, what does this have to do with making a knife or a kitchen knife, I'm going to show you the little secret. I've got other videos about this, but here's a blade I forged out and I've got a tang on it. This is a 1/2-inch dowel. I cut a slot in it. One way you can actually do this, you know your chop saw, where the blade comes down, like zing zing, there's a clearance slot. A gentleman on Instagram gave me this tip, but he just sticks this on that little relief, puts a piece of tape on it and cuts it. That way you use your chop saw, your miter saw, to cut these slots in here. I've got more complicated ways I do it, but I think that way is a lot better. So the way that I'll often do this is we'll put this tang into here, like that. And then this goes into here. Now I don't want to stick it too far. Oh, that goes in nicely. And what that allows you to do, obviously we're going to put a top cap on here, a bolster of some sort. And for that bolster, I do the same thing. I just do like a 1/2-inch hole and then actually machine my slot and file it so we get a real nice precise fit on this. But that way you can slide it in here. You can glue this whole thing up, slide it. I get it to fit and I have these clamps. I'll show you this. I'll show you this whole setup quick. So I've got these super cheap little clamps. They're covered in epoxy. But what I did is, you see right here, I cut this little slot out of the one end. right there, and that essentially goes over your blade like this. So if I open this up, now if I have my top ferrule on there, my top bolster, I can clamp this whole issue together like this. You see how we got that clearance for the blade right there? And then put the epoxy in, clamp it all, let it set up for a minute or two, just till it starts to firm up, and I'm using a 5-minute epoxy. And then with this whole thing clamped up, pull the blade out, and obviously this thing, you know, once you've got your bolster on there, there's pressure. That glue can dry, and then all I do is heat the tang up slightly after everything's dried, and it equals to a nice light push just to get it back in there, and very repeatable, very accurate. And look at this. That's quite nicely centered there. That is slick. I'm really excited about that. My drill press, I mean, maybe other drill presses are better, but mine is so finicky, and I don't have a really good clamp. The clamp that I use only clamps up about this high. So I'm always checking, and even so, I end up doing a couple of these. I'll do like 5 handles at a time, and I get one of them that is really cattywampus. When I put the blade in, it's sitting something like this. And I've had quite a few of them that I drilled too far out. You just can't make them work. So I think that is going to be a pretty slick little unit. I know it might not be applicable to a lot of you guys because not everybody has an old 1960 something, 50 something Ensign lathe in their garage, but that was one of the big reasons I wanted this lathe, so I could batch out these handles. And this is just the start of it, right? But if you can do, like, this is kind of the mundane task, getting a hole put in the middle, but being able to do a hole straight in line with the axes of this, so it's perfectly straight, it's just going to speed up the entire process. I can batch a bunch of these suckers out. I could get all my blocks pretty much ready to go, and then, you know, pick and choose. You spend a couple hours, boom, you get 20, 30 blocks done, and it'll save me so much time in the long run. I just wanted to try this out. I figured I'd take you guys along, something you guys might want to see. And had a few stumbling roadblocks, a few things that didn't work, like our chisel wrench, but I'm actually gonna go ahead and I'll probably take that chisel, I'll grind it down a little bit so it's not quite tight of a fit, cut the chisel end off, and we'll weld a piece of bar so we've got a nice T-handle on there, and we'll be good to go getting this boring, arduous, tedious process that you have to fuss with, but it's not important, right? It's very important that it's centered, but nobody sees it. So this is gonna be fantastic. I'm super stoked. And hopefully this gave you an idea, you learned something. And if not, you just kind of see different people doing different things in their garages. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. Cheers.